The Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias where individuals with low ability at a task overestimate their ability. It's characterized by a disconnect between perceived ability and actual ability. Named after social psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger, the effect highlights the metacognitive inability of those with low ability to recognize their own ineptitude and evaluate their competence accurately. Various factors contribute to the Dunning-Kruger effect, including cognitive biases, limited knowledge, societal reinforcement of confidence, poor feedback mechanisms, and illusory superiority. Understanding these factors can provide valuable insights into the nature of human self-perception and competence, and help mitigate the influence of this effect in both personal and professional settings. Self-awareness is a fundamental element in assessing one's own capabilities accurately. It involves understanding one's own strengths, weaknesses, thoughts, beliefs, motivations, and emotions. It's crucial for personal growth and improvement. However, not everyone possesses this trait to the same degree, and this discrepancy can significantly impact people's perception of their own intelligence or skill level. In the context of the Dunning-Kruger effect, lack of self-awareness becomes a critical factor. Those who lack self-awareness may not recognize their shortcomings in a particular area, leading them to overestimate their competence. They may not critically evaluate their performance or seek feedback, leading to a persistent illusion of high ability. This lack of self-awareness can be caused by several factors such as cognitive dissonance. This is a psychological term for the discomfort someone feels when they hold two contradictory beliefs simultaneously or when their actions contradict their beliefs. To resolve this discomfort, people often reject, justify, or ignore information that contradicts their perceived self-competence. Self-serving bias. This is a common tendency for individuals to attribute their successes to their own abilities and efforts while attributing failures to external factors. This bias can skew their self-perception, causing them to inflate their own competence or intelligence. Defensive mechanisms. Sometimes, individuals use psychological mechanisms to reject or distort reality to protect their self-esteem. Denial, repression, or rationalization can all be used to maintain a positive self-image, even in the face of clear evidence of incompetence or lack of intelligence. The lack of self-awareness and these associated factors can create a powerful barrier to accurate self-assessment, leading some individuals to believe they're smarter than they actually are. Overcoming this requires fostering self-awareness through introspection, seeking feedback, and being open to criticism. Confidence is a feeling or belief that one can rely on someone or something. In the context of personal abilities or intelligence, it refers to the certainty an individual has about their own competence. However, confidence doesn't always correlate with actual competence. This discrepancy can lead to what we call the illusion of confidence. The Dunning-Kruger effect often involves a significant degree of overconfidence. Individuals with limited competence may hold an inflated belief in their abilities because they're not aware of what they don't know or understand. This lack of awareness gives them an unjustified confidence in their capabilities, thus creating an illusion of intelligence. Several factors contribute to the illusion of confidence. Ignorance of standards. Sometimes people are not aware of the standards required for a particular task or field of knowledge. Without an understanding of these standards, they might believe they're performing at a higher level than they actually are. Simplicity bias. Individuals may oversimplify complex concepts or tasks, believing that because they understand the simplified version, they understand the whole thing. This can lead to overconfidence in their comprehension or skills. Confirmation bias. This is the tendency to search for, interpret, favor, and recall information in a way that confirms one's pre-existing beliefs or hypotheses. When applied to self-perception, people might selectively remember instances where they succeeded or were right and forget instances of failure or error. Failure to compare. People often evaluate their abilities in isolation rather than comparing them to the abilities of others or to objective standards. Without these comparisons, individuals may overestimate their relative competence. The illusion of confidence can be a significant barrier to self-improvement and learning. It can prevent individuals from recognizing their mistakes and learning from them. To mitigate the illusion of confidence, one can try to seek out objective feedback, compare one's skills with others, and aware of cognitive biases that distort perception. Along with overestimating their own abilities, individuals experiencing the Dunning-Kruger effect often fail to accurately recognize or acknowledge the skills and competence of others, particularly those who are genuinely expert in a given area. This is a significant component of the effect and further compounds the problem of inaccurate self-assessment. Several factors contribute to this inability to recognize expertise in others. Lack of knowledge. Just as lack of knowledge in a specific area can make it difficult for an individual to assess their own competence, it can also make it difficult for them to recognize competence in others. They may not understand the depth and breadth of knowledge or skill required to be genuinely expert in a field and therefore fail to appreciate the expertise of others. Cognitive bias. Cognitive biases can lead people to dismiss or undervalue the abilities of others. For example, the bias blind spot is the cognitive bias of recognizing the impact of biases on the judgment of others, while failing to see the impact of biases on one's own judgment. This can lead people to dismiss the expertise of others as mere bias, while not seeing the biases that affect their own judgment. Ego protection. Recognizing the expertise of others can be a threat to self-esteem if it highlights one's own lack of knowledge or skill. To protect their ego, individuals may downplay or dismiss the abilities of others. Projection. This is a psychological defense mechanism where individuals attribute characteristics they find unacceptable in themselves to others. In this context, individuals might project their own incompetence onto others, leading them to believe that others are less competent than they truly are. Overcoming the inability to recognize expertise in others requires humility, openness to learning, and a genuine understanding of a given field. It involves recognizing and challenging one's own cognitive biases and being willing to accept that others may have more knowledge or skill. This can be a significant step towards a more accurate self-assessment and a better understanding of one's place in relation to others in a particular field or discipline. Cognitive biases are systematic errors in thinking that affect the decisions and judgments that people make. These biases are often a result of the brain's attempt to simplify information processing. They are rules of thumb that help you make sense of the world and reach decisions with relative speed. However, they can also lead to perceptual distortion, inaccurate judgment, or illogical interpretation. In the context of the Dunning-Kruger effect, several cognitive biases can contribute to the overestimation of one's abilities. Overconfidence bias. This is the tendency for individuals to overestimate their own abilities or the accuracy of their knowledge. Overconfidence bias can lead to an inflated sense of understanding or competence. Self-serving bias. This bias leads people to attribute their successes to their own abilities or efforts, and blame failures on external factors. This can lead to an inflated view of one's own intelligence or skills. Confirmation bias. This is the tendency to seek out, interpret, and remember information in a way that confirms one's pre-existing beliefs or hypotheses. It can cause people to ignore or discount information that contradicts their perceived competence. Bias. Blind spot. This is the tendency to see oneself as less biased than others. It can prevent individuals from recognizing their own cognitive biases, including those that contribute to an inflated self-perception. Cognitive biases like these can significantly distort self-assessment and contribute to the Dunning-Kruger effect. They are often unconscious, making them difficult to identify and counteract. However, awareness of these biases is the first step towards mitigating their impact. Strategies such as seeking feedback from others, considering alternative viewpoints, and questioning one's own assumptions can also help to reduce the influence of cognitive biases. The Dunning-Kruger effect is rooted in the paradox that arises from limited knowledge. In essence, the less people know about a particular subject, the less capable they are of recognizing their lack of knowledge or skill in that area. Several factors contribute to this issue of limited knowledge. Ignorance of scope. Those with limited knowledge often don't realize the full extent or depth of a subject area. This means they may not understand how much they don't know, leading them to believe they're more knowledgeable than they actually are. Misunderstanding complexity. Some individuals might underestimate the complexity of a subject due to their limited knowledge. This can lead them to oversimplify things and assume they understand more than they do. The double curse. This term refers to the twofold challenge that individuals with limited knowledge face. Firstly, their lack of knowledge leads to poor performance. Secondly, their lack of knowledge prevents them from accurately evaluating their performance. This double curse can lead to a significant overestimation of one's own abilities. Lack of comparative information. Without an accurate understanding of the standards or norms in a given area, it can be difficult to gauge one's own competence. Those with limited knowledge might not realize how their skills compare to others or to the expected standards, leading to a skewed self-perception. Addressing the issue of limited knowledge requires active learning and seeking feedback. Engaging with more experienced individuals in the field, seeking out educational resources, and continuously challenging one's own understanding can help expand knowledge and provide a more accurate frame of reference for self-evaluation. It's also beneficial to foster a growth mindset, which is the belief that abilities and intelligence can be developed through dedication and hard work. This mindset encourages continuous learning and adaptability. In various scenarios, individuals may experience success due to factors beyond their control, such as luck or favorable circumstances, rather than their own competence or intelligence. However, they might attribute this success to their own abilities, which can inflate their self-perception of competence or intelligence. This misattribution is often influenced by several cognitive biases. Self-serving bias. This bias leads individuals to credit their successes to their own abilities and efforts, while blaming failures on external factors. When luck plays a role in success, they might ignore its influence and instead believe that their skill was the primary factor. Attribution bias. This is the tendency to interpret events based on one's own preconceptions. For example, if someone believes they're highly competent, they may attribute any success to their competence, even when it's due to luck. Hindsight bias. Also known as the "I knew it all along" effect, this bias leads individuals to see past events as being more predictable than they were at the time. This can cause people to retroactively attribute their success to skill rather than luck. Confirmation bias. Individuals may selectively remember and focus on instances where they were successful and ignore or downplay instances of failure or where luck was clearly a factor. This can reinforce their belief in their own competence or intelligence. Mistaking luck for skill can create a false sense of competence and contribute to the Dunning-Kruger effect. It can prevent individuals from accurately assessing their abilities and learning from their experiences. To counteract this, it's important to critically reflect on successes and failures, consider the role of external factors, and be open to feedback from others. A realistic understanding of one's own skills and abilities can lead to personal growth and improvement. Society often values and rewards confidence, sometimes even when it's not backed by actual competence or expertise. This societal reinforcement can play a significant role in fueling the Dunning-Kruger effect. Here are several ways in which societal reinforcement can contribute to this phenomenon. Rewarding confidence. In many settings, from the classroom to the boardroom, confidence is often rewarded. People who speak up or take the lead, even if they're not the most knowledgeable or skilled, may receive positive feedback and reinforcement. This can lead them to overestimate their abilities. Confusing confidence with competence. Confidence can be persuasive and compelling. Others may mistake a confident person's self-assuredness for genuine competence, further reinforcing the individual's inflated self-perception. The halo effect. This is a cognitive bias where the perception of positive traits in a person or product positively influences further judgments about them. If a person is confident and charismatic, others may perceive them as more competent or intelligent than they actually are, strengthening the individual's belief in their own abilities. Lack of constructive criticism. Society often discourages criticism, especially in environments that prioritize politeness or harmony. As a result, individuals may not receive the constructive feedback they need to recognize and correct their overestimations of competence. Media influence. Media often portrays confident individuals as successful and competent, reinforcing the idea that confidence equates to skill or intelligence. This can influence individuals to overvalue their own abilities if they're confident. To mitigate the influence of societal reinforcement on the Dunning-Kruger effect, it's important to foster environments where constructive feedback is encouraged and where competence is accurately recognized and rewarded. It's also beneficial to promote self-awareness and critical thinking, helping individuals to recognize and question their own biases and assumptions. Feedback is crucial for accurate self-assessment. It provides a reality check, allowing individuals to compare their perceptions of their performance with external evaluations. However, when feedback mechanisms are poor or non-existent, individuals may not have the information they need to correct overestimations of their abilities, contributing to the Dunning-Kruger effect. Several factors contribute to poor feedback mechanisms. Lack of feedback. In some environments, feedback may be infrequent or absent altogether. Without feedback, individuals have no way of knowing how well they're actually performing, which can lead to overestimations of competence. Non-constructive feedback. Not all feedback is helpful. Vague, overly positive, or overly negative feedback can be just as damaging as no feedback at all. Effective feedback should be specific, balanced, and constructive, giving individuals clear information on what they're doing well and what they need to improve. Ignoring or dismissing feedback. Even when feedback is given, individuals might ignore or dismiss it, particularly if it conflicts with their self-perception. This can be due to cognitive dissonance, the discomfort one feels when faced with conflicting beliefs or when one's actions contradict one's beliefs. Timing of feedback. Feedback that is delayed may be less effective than immediate feedback, as individuals may have already formed their own perceptions of their performance. Cultural or institutional barriers. In some cultures or institutions, giving negative or critical feedback may be discouraged. This can lead to a culture of false positives, where everyone is seen as doing well, regardless of actual performance. Improving feedback mechanisms can significantly mitigate the Dunning-Kruger effect. This involves not only providing regular constructive feedback, but also fostering a culture where feedback is valued and acted upon. It's also important for individuals to be open to receiving feedback and willing to adjust their self-perceptions based on it. A fixed mindset, a term coined by psychologist Carol Dweck, is the belief that intelligence, talent, and abilities are fixed traits that cannot be significantly developed. People with a fixed mindset tend to believe that their existing skills and intelligence are static, leading them to avoid challenges and give up easily in the face of difficulty. Here's how a fixed mindset can contribute to the Dunning-Kruger effect. Avoidance of challenges. People with a fixed mindset often avoid challenges because they fear that failure might expose their lack of abilities. This avoidance can limit their exposure to situations that might reveal their actual competence levels, allowing them to maintain an inflated view of their abilities. Resistance to feedback. Those with a fixed mindset are often defensive or resistant to feedback, particularly if it's critical. They may see criticism as a direct attack on their innate abilities, leading them to dismiss or ignore valuable feedback that could adjust their overestimated self-perceptions. Failure to improve. Because people with a fixed mindset believe they cannot significantly improve their abilities, they may not make the effort to learn or grow. This lack of improvement can further widen the gap between their perceived competence and their actual competence. Attribution to external factors. When faced with failure, people with a fixed mindset often attribute it to external factors, rather than their own lack of skill or knowledge. This deflects any negative implications for their self-perceived competence. To combat the influence of a fixed mindset on the Dunning-Kruger effect, it's beneficial to cultivate a growth mindset. This is the belief that abilities can be developed and intelligence can be grown with effort, learning, and persistence. People with a growth mindset are more likely to embrace challenges, learn from criticism, and persist in the face of setbacks, leading to greater achievement and a more accurate perception of their own competence. Illusory superiority is a cognitive bias that causes people to overestimate their positive qualities and abilities and underestimate their negative qualities relative to others. This is often referred to as the above-average effect or superiority bias, and is a key factor contributing to the Dunning-Kruger effect. Several factors contribute to this phenomenon. Selective perception. People may selectively perceive or remember information that reinforces their positive self-view. For example, they might remember instances when they performed well and forget instances when they performed poorly. Egocentric bias. This is the tendency to rely too heavily on one's own perspective and experiences when interpreting events. This can lead to an overestimation of one's own abilities and a disregard for the skills and competencies of others. Self-enhancement. This is a basic human desire to maintain and enhance positive self-views. Individuals are more likely to accept information that enhances their self-perceptions and dismiss information that contradicts their positive self-view. Lack of comparative information. Without accurate information about how others are doing, it's easy to overestimate one's own abilities. In other words, if people lack a clear benchmark or standard of comparison, they may default to assuming they're above average. Mitigating the effects of illusory superiority involves fostering self-awareness, seeking out feedback, and challenging one's own assumptions. Activities such as mindfulness and reflection can also help individuals become more aware of their biases and assumptions, leading to a more accurate self-assessment.